weapons to protect you from evil.
I am evil.
Radio Free Innsmouth, episode 396. Got another DSBM sort of band where the D stands for
You're gonna find me dead!
and the S is like
I'm gonna be hanging from the bathroom!
and the B ain't what you got in your toilet. It stands for
black metal.
And this time, unlike with Bethlehem from last week, this really is some DSBM, okay? Bethlehem kind of gets grandfathered in alongside stuff like Street and Forgotten Woods. The band we're talking about today came into existence after the acronym DSBM was kind of invented by the scene writ large. In fact, with the exception of Misery's Omen that I covered something like 6 years ago on episode 85, the band in question this week, Nyktalgia, are probably the only DSBM band that I enjoy from the time period post the invention of the term DSBM. They're certainly the only one I can think of off the top of my head. I don't know, maybe some Zaster or Leviathan stuff, but most of the stuff I enjoy from both of those projects comes from before the internet started running around calling those bands DSBM. Not the case with Nyktalgia. These guys are like the most DSBM to ever D and also S. Alright, they fit all the stereotypes to a T, down to the cover of their first album, which is like this blue, monochromatic, washed out looking thing, with one of the fellas in the band standing in front of a tree, putting, a gun in his mouth. No regard for firearm safety. I mean, he's just got it right here, puts it right in his mouth like this. Hey guys, sorry about that. Looks like I had to come back from the dead.
어플로 주문을 하던가?
Oh, being dead? Yeah, it sucked. Everything was kind of monochromatic and turquoise and all fuzzy, way too much fucking bloom lighting. And it all smelled like an open can of Dinty Moore that had been left out too long. 0 out of 5 stars, would not recommend. And that's kind of how I feel about most of this DSBM shit, which is why it's so surprising that I've always enjoyed Nyktalgia's work, because they 100% fit into the modern DSBM paradigm. But for some reason, maybe like 10 years ago, I happened to give them a shot, and I ended up loving both their albums. So hey, maybe this episode can convince black metal fans that normally would turn their nose up at this sort of thing to give Nyktalgia a chance. Because whatever they're doing, it definitely worked for me. The three fellas in this band made some of the best post-millennium black metal to ever come out, and I do mean that. No demos, no EPs, no split 7 inches, nothing. Just 2 full-length albums, one in 2004, one in 2008. 2004 was self-titled, and it goes a little something like, big old freezing walls of buzzing bar chords, bass that is much more prominent than normal for the genre, and rather mechanistic percussion, and vocals that are rather tortured sounding and Burzimic, but not quite as overwrought as a band like Bethlehem or Silencer. But as you're hearing with the introduction of this tremolo-picked riff, there's also a lot of just classic, old-school Nordic black metal going on here. Which is probably a big part of why I like it so much, to be honest. Also, this drummer fucks. Check this out. Nice fucking variant on the classic Burzum beat structure. And here comes a big, massive wash of chords. Perfect counterpoint to that prior, more aggressive riff. This one's a bit more focused on the D side of the DSBM spectrum, but still hateful enough to bring in some of that S, if you know what I'm saying. And another nice little drum switch up, keeping that same riff, but now with more of a mid-paced beat that lets you hear that prominent bass a little better. And it sets up this little mid-paced bit here, which is actually an interesting sort of variation on the opening riff to the track, and leans even harder into that sort of wandering chord feeling that is so endemic to a lot of this DSBM stuff. Very much a classic Nordic-style black metal riff tinged with more modern sensibilities. From there, another little transition. Tremolo riff comes in, no drums. Building tension, which is released by a pummeling barrage of blast beats that are maybe a little bit more aggressive than what is normal for this kind of DSBM stuff. Again, that might be another reason why I like this band so much. So that opening track right there pretty much gives you an idea of all the different ingredients that went into this album if you really listen to it. I brought the example up of the death metal band Pessimist before, where I read them described as having obviously listened to every death metal band that mattered, and then they put it all together, but they don't really sound like they're copying any one specific band. These guys are doing that with pretty much every variety of proto DSBM and honestly just Nordic black metal in general. They got all the tricks in there. Por ejemplo, there's a lot of Odin pop in there, which if you haven't heard that term before, it's kind of an antiquated word that used to be utilized a lot by the black metal underground, much like the similarly forgotten term Norsecore. Odin pop essentially refers to the kind of slow, delicately built, heavily layered, almost shoegazy kind of black metal done over almost danceable kind of drum beats. I believe the term was actually coined by good old Varg himself.
So, how do you like your cornflakes? You know, do you like them crispy or you like them soft?
To describe his work on side A of Philosophem, so basically, whenever you hear something that sounds a little like that's the Odin pop kicking in, you dig? Staying in Norway for our analysis of the ingredients going into the Nyktalgia gumbo, we gotta bring up a band called Streed, who only did 3 songs, but they were massively influential on the DSBM genre as a whole, and they were fond of taking those very Odin pop-esque chords and sort of playing them in a way that's even more washed out sounding, that ends up letting the bass guitar be the lead melodic instrument for a lot of their songs. Obviously, there's a lot of that going on in Nyktalgia, as you heard earlier. Also from Norway, bit of a Dark Throne influence, specifically what I like to call the Transylvanian Hunger 2-part melody, where you got a melodic phrase goes a little something like real spacey, wandering kind of melody with a simple ambient drum beat under it, and then it's paired with a slightly more aggressive but still very spaced out sounding riff that might go a little something like and whenever you're going to switch between riff 1 or riff 2, or from riff 2 to riff 1, you sort of subtly pick up the intensity on the drums to emphasize that change is occurring. It's also a very common compositional technique utilized by all the different Blazebirth Hall bands. But another Norwegian trick that Nyktalgia uses that isn't as common amongst a lot of the Blazebirth bands would be what I kind of call the wandering chord. A little bit harder to describe. Best example of this would probably be a band like Ancient, where you kind of individually pick out notes in sort of a 3-tone interval and then subtly shift the chord shape and kind of flip-flop back and forth between the two. This technique, I'm convinced, actually evolved into what I like to call the Le Légion Noire pedal tone technique, best demonstrated by mutilation, of course. Where you've got a series of notes individually picked out that kind of orbit around a central tone, with that central tone being kind of double tapped by the bass guitar for emphasis. And lastly, another Norwegian influence, which I can only call Forgotten Woods style weird fucking drumming. Because Forgotten Woods was all about having some pretty normal ambient black metal drum beats under a musical phrase that might go a little something like, you know, pretty standard Odin pop style drum beat. But then when the musical phrase repeats, the drums don't stick with that same drum beat. They do something fucking weird, like whatever the fuck that disco beat was. Forgotten Woods were very fond of kind of messing with the listener like that, particularly on their second album. And there's a whole lot of that in Nyktalgia. This first Nyktalgia album, the self-titled one, if you listen for all 4 of those techniques, you can hear them being recombined in new, innovative ways that still obviously pay tribute to those influences, but don't really sound like they're ripping off any one band in particular. At least to my ears. Maybe if you're a real shithead, it'd just be like, this band's Burzum knockoff, whatever, shut up, you're boring.
Turns out some of the worst people in the world happen to be gay nerds. Isn't that weird?
Check it out, second track on the album. Total Odin pop combined with the street style melodic bass playing, and then a total street style wash of chords. And from there we jump into something of a hybrid of the Nyktalgia Noir style pedal tone riff with its immediate antecessor, the Norwegian style wandering chord trick, which is all gradually setting us up for a massive fucking Odin pop barrage, whilst still keeping those street style bass accents as a major part of the music. But here's where it gets very Burzum-y, this whole everything goes away except for the guitars, but they're not doing a tremolo picking aggressive kind of chord. They're doing a real Odin poppy style ambient one. It's kind of like they threw the melody up in the air and then it lands with a crash on top of these very Burzumic drum beats. And here's where I get to bring up something I found to be rather interesting about this album. It mirrors a lot of the DSBM, or rather proto-DSBM stuff that I do enjoy, like Bethlehem or Streed or Burzum, not necessarily just in tone, but also in that it doesn't really seem all that D or S to me, this BM, at all times. It often just seems more kind of solemn and mystical. Or maybe that's just me trying to be overly positive, I don't know. Anyways, here comes the Forgotten Wood style weird fucking drums. Like this odd, slow to mid-paced double bass bit with the ambient chords under it. That's pretty funky. And with that, I think we've hit most of the four. Wait, what the fuck do you mean there were 6? We got Odin Pop, we got the Streed thing, we got Forgotten Woods weird drumming, we got the Dark Throne, the Ancient Wandering Chords, and oh fuck yeah, I guess there's the Mutilation thing, huh? 6, although I would combine the Mutilation thing and the Ancient thing. They're kind of, one goes into the other. But yeah, no, I fucked up. Please leave a note in the comments if you noticed how I miscounted. But yeah, we hit 4 out of 5 of those in that song. Luckily, the one right after it leads off with the one that we didn't touch on. That Transylvanian Hunger shit. Damn, homie coming in hard with the fucking witch scream, too. But this is like a total Transylvanian Hunger style riff. And that drum beat is a total Transylvanian Hunger style drum beat, although maybe a little bit more technically precise than what you might hear on a typical Dark Throne album. And here comes the subtle drum emphasis leading into the second riff of the Transylvanian Hunger style riff pair. But they've combined it with that really washed out guitar playing style and loud bass style of Streed. That's what I mean when I'm talking about they're recombining all these different Norse black metal ideas in interesting new ways. Like right here, they're going to do that Transylvanian Hunger style drum emphasis in a more of an Odin pop style section, but also there's like the weird fucking Forgotten Wood style drumming. Like this part right up here, this fill almost sounded like something you might hear in early Enslaved. Then into more Odin pop style drone that ends up taking a turn for the wandering chord style. Fantastic little bit of black metal. I've said it before, I've said it again. True Norwegian black metal, when done correctly, is still some of the coolest shit of all time. Don't listen to the haters. And these guys aren't even Norwegian, they're German, but they got the spirit, man. So you think, okay, yeah, no, first album, fucking great. Second one, maybe just gonna be more of the same?
Isn't that cute? But that's wrong!
I don't know what the fuck happened to these guys between 2004 and 2008, but they appear to have gone a little nuts. Because compared to the self-titled, Peisithanatos is a lot busier, a lot more frantic, a lot stranger, and a whole lot more varied sounding. That said, it's also a fucking masterpiece, but I gotta lead you in with like the weird shit on this one, because these guys went nuts. Like, what the fuck is this?
Gangsta shit, nigga!
Like, I'm kind of speechless. That's a weird fucking riff, but with the utilization of the weird drumming and the counterpoint being more of an ancient style wandering chord, somehow they make it work with the overall Nyktalgia sound. Whatever you call this shit, I like it. Very interesting new style they're working with on this song. Like, check out after this full stop. They took that weird percussive riff from the song intro and then kind of dark throned it up with the ambient drum beat and more tremolo picking approach. And they even do the Transylvanian Hunger style riff pair with this other riff right here. Real weird shit, which of course is going to take us into a drum fill, and then the weird Forgotten Wood style drum switcheroo playing that same riff with a weird fucking drum beat under it that eventually goes into, I guess, this album's variant of the Odin pop wandering chord mixture. Eventually it does smooth itself out into a more standard, for Nyktalgia at least, sort of melancholic riff, like really emphasizing that Nyktalgia Noir style pedal tone. But then this happens. and we get hit with the final ingredients. That being this lead guitar shit here, which was not a factor on the first album at all. This is like something entirely new that they've incorporated into their sound with this album. And I can hear you out there like, what's the big fucking deal, dude? Maybe it doesn't have as many solos as Yngwie or whatever the fuck, but other black metal shit's got solos in it, right? Well, yeah, you know, even go back to Celtic Frost or whatever, there was plenty of guitar solos. You got Euronymous dropping guest solos on the Enslaved demo. Fucking Classic Dissection's got solos all over the fucking place. And even in the later atmospheric black metal world, you got Druduk out here doing some fucking...
I'm the fastest in the world, I beat everyone.
But here's the thing, Slick. All those examples I listed, that's heavy metal guitar soloing technique being utilized in a heavy metal way inside a black metal song. That ain't what Nyktalgia is doing. What Nyktalgia is doing is developing a sort of lead guitar technique that was kind of invented by Burzum on Varg's second album. I like to call it the Open the Gates to Hell lead guitar. You know, the part in Key to the Gate where he says, "Where is my dagger of sacrifice? I will open the gates to hell." Ultimate top 10 black metal moments of all time. If you disagree, you're a flat out fucking poo. You know, go listen to Dark Funeral or Cradle of Filth or something. I ain't got time for you. But yeah, the Open the Gates to Hell lead guitar, a specifically black metal style of lead guitar playing that I wish showed up more often. One of the coolest developments in that arena actually comes from the first Destroyer 666 album. Towards the end of the first song, War Slut and Shrapnel bust out some of this shit. That'll put some fucking hair on your balls, okay? That's the good shit. But Nyktalgia, they took this idea and they ran with it farther than honestly anyone else I can think of at the moment, all right? On this particular album, they found a new ingredient to add to their weird black metal stew, and they do some crazy shit with it. Even during songs that aren't as wacky as the first one I played off this album, they just... the fucking guitar playing on this record is stupendous. Now this right here, this ain't the lead guitar playing I'm talking about. You'll know when that happens. But this is a sick fucking melancholic black metal riff. Really shows them developing that ambient style from the first album. Here comes a little taster of that lead guitar. And it's definitely some dope shit, but it's not as crazy as it gets later in the song. Right now they're just kind of wrapping it around this very emotional sort of riff to take us into the Odin pop, because you gotta have it. I mean, shit, dude, this even is like beyond Odin pop. This sounds like fucking Viking era Bathory in a depressive black metal context, and it's really fucking good stuff. But then this shit happens. Bro, post-black metal is canceled, because it's never gonna get better than this. The fucking lead guitar is bonkers here. Then it is some even more furious, blasting yet still very ambient and almost kind of calm type riffage. Total Burzum beat underneath, but the guitar playing is like that washed out street shit taken to a more extreme and abrasive level. Then they sneak in a little bit more of that lead guitar just to whet your appetite, let you know what's coming up later in the song. Then a big stop. And they kind of do a second song within the song type thing. Coming back in with the whole coda portion of this song, it's like a dreamlike combination of that almost Bathory-ish shit from earlier with the wandering chords and a little bit of LLN, and then the fucking lead guitar happens. And it's like some of the best shit ever, stemming all the way back to Burzum, going through the other examples, Destroyer 666, whole lot of Slavic bands, Dub Buck and whatnot. This whole section right here is one of the greatest examples of that technique being utilized. And there's even a
Still going, this asshole.
moment where he carries that lead guitar playing over into the next set of riffs, which is a reiteration of that kind of Bathory Viking-ish riff from earlier. Like, fuck, dude, this album's insane. Which Nyktalgia album do I like better? I don't know. They're both amazing for different reasons, and they both keep alive a lot of black metal traditions, kind of hiding them under that more modern DSBM veneer. Generally, when these guys are brought up, it seems like there's a lot of people out there that are like, yeah, Nyktalgia is fucking great, but I still feel like they're not really mentioned enough, especially nowadays. Maybe it's because they only had 2 albums and then just fucking vanished. I don't know. But I think they're great. Hopefully I managed to convince you of that, but hey, even if I didn't, stick around for the next episode. Thanks for watching.
One about chewing and then the other one about pulling your wand out of your pocket and putting it back in your pocket.
Yeah, pretty much.